A church service goes horribly wrong as Pastor Jamie Coots handles 3 of his rattlesnakes in front of his congregation. He believes that the power of God will protect him from their lethal venom, but as one strikes his hand, he needs more than just prayers to keep him alive. Hit like and subscribe. This is Fierce. While most religious people attend church to pray, sing, and be thankful for all that is good in the world, other services offer something different: snakes, and it's not as uncommon as you might think. At 42 years old, Pastor Jamie Coots had 2 passions in life. One was to preach the good word of the Bible, and the other was handling snakes. While most of his services involved singing, preaching, testifying, and praying, occasionally he combined his 2 passions and brought his pet snakes into the church. Snake handling of this kind is considered a misdemeanor offense by law, but it's rarely enforced out of respect for religious freedoms. But handling deadly snakes and assuming that through preaching about the Lord will afford you immunity is a dangerous thing to believe in. Jamie's religious beliefs were so strong that he truly believed that the Lord would protect him against all harm. And for 22 years, he seemed to be right. It seemed that the Lord was shining down on him. Although he was a 3rd-generation snake handler and grew up around the animals, luck, or perhaps his faith, was about to run out. He had been bitten 9 times by rattlesnakes and had rejected medical intervention each and every time. The power of the Lord would protect him, and that is all that he needed. While some prayed for his speedy recovery, Jamie's positive mental attitude and strong faith pulled him through each time. But those bites he had sustained weren't without their problems. One bite in 1993 nearly killed him, and he lost part of his finger to another bite in 1998. But at least he survived them, for now. Preaching using serpents is a unique and mysterious Christian sect. Some words from the Bible referring to immunity from snakes have been taken literally. During the services, Christians who feel empowered by God place their hands into boxes and stroke or pick up venomous snakes, believing that they will not be harmed. The pastors don't worship the snakes. Instead, they use them to convince non-Christians that God protects them from harm. There are about 125 snake-handling churches across the United States, and the species used range from rattlesnakes, cottonmouths, and copperheads. The majority of these churches are situated in the Appalachia region of the eastern states. On Saturday, February 15, 2014, Jamie was preaching in the Full Gospel Tabernacle in Jesus' Name in Kentucky. It was a church that was founded by his grandfather in 1978. Prior to his life in the church, Jamie primarily worked as a truck driver for a mine. His fascination with snakes started at a young age, but it wasn't until he was 23 that he was considered a snake handler. When he became a pastor, he began touring to different churches, taking with him his beloved snakes. At his own church, he increased the number of snakes he used in the services, and he also increased the proportion of those with lethal potential. He was dicing with death. His practices were well known, as he had been featured in a National Geographic documentary called Snake Salvation, which focused on the unusual way of teaching the Bible. This only added to interest in his form of preaching, and people traveled from far and wide to witness his services. But his practices had had severe consequences before. Back in 1995, one member of the congregation, a 28-year-old woman, stepped forward to handle one of the rattlesnakes. She truly believed that she would be protected from the reptile's venom by God. As she reached out to handle the snake, it recoiled momentarily before striking her. It sank its fangs into her arm, and she cried out in alarm. Even with the searing pain growing more intense, the woman still believed that she would make it. She did not fear death. Instead, she knew that God was with her, and she was carried back to Jamie's house, where she lay on his couch as the venom took hold. Other members of the congregation joined her, standing around her praying as she lay there growing weaker and weaker. Hours later, she died. Despite tragedies like this, Jamie continued to use the practice of snake handling in his churches. He seemed to be above the law. Regardless of the fact that it was his snake that killed the woman, or that he had preached that it was safe to handle the snakes for those who truly embrace God, Jamie was never held accountable. He was initially charged in connection with the death, but the judge decided not to pursue it. Years after that tragic incident, Jamie was arrested in 2008. He was accused of illegally trafficking snakes. His obsession with the reptiles was not only getting others into trouble, but now he was picked up by officers for disobeying the law. Later, Jamie acquired the permits he needed to transport snakes across the states. Now, as he conducted his service in February 2014, he held up 3 different rattlesnakes. He loved the way they moved and their beautiful coloration and skin patterns. As he held his favorite snake in his hands, the congregation enthralled by the spectacle, danger was just moments away. He loved the feeling of handling the dangerous snakes. He knew that a single bite could kill him, and yet he never felt afraid. It was the power of his faith and his belief that everything would be all right that kept his fear at bay. But perhaps he was blinded by his faith. Perhaps it was foolhardy to invite members of the congregation to risk their lives to prove that God was protecting them. As he held his favorite snake out in front of him, it suddenly wheeled around and bit Jamie on his right hand. He instinctively withdrew his hand. About 25% of rattlesnake bites are dry bites, meaning that no venom is injected when the animal bites you. Maybe the previous 9 bites Jamie had received were dry, and that's how he survived. As a small amount of blood trickled down the back of his hand, it was clear that the snake had pierced his skin and likely injected venom. But Jamie remained calm in front of his audience. He retreated to his home, believing that, like the previous times, he would be spared by the good Lord. But the venom was coursing through his body, eating away at his tissues and cells. Blood began leaking from his vessels. The clotting mechanism was impaired. Just like a cat, it appeared that Jamie only had 9 lives. He had boasted about surviving the previous bites, but it seemed that on this 10th occasion, his body couldn't handle it. Jamie felt lightheaded and dizzy as he lay down on his sofa, trying to remain calm. The toxic mixture of proteins and enzymes inside the venom acted to subdue the victim. Some began digesting his internal organs. Others began affecting the beating of his heart. He was moments away from death. Emergency services had been alerted by a member of the congregation, but when they arrived at Jamie's property, the family refused to let them treat him. Even as Jamie lost consciousness, they still believed that he would come back to them. The anti-venom was tantalizingly close. Just a single shot or an IV drip, and he may have made it, but it wasn't to be. Just 2 hours after receiving the toxic bite, Jamie took his last breath. His family watched on as the man they loved, respected, and looked up to passed away right before their eyes. Now, Jamie's son, Jamie Coots, has taken over being pastor at the Full Gospel Tabernacle in Jesus' name. And just like his father, he too is preaching alongside the handling of venomous serpents. Will history repeat itself?